Joyce's mom was not, and still doesn't stay very far from here. They're in Gumo Estate. And what is interesting is that very day, I had been to see Joyce's mom because I had come from a trip in Sri Lanka and had given her presents. So I'm wondering, here I am, having been there earlier in the morning, seen her, and then I'm coming to the house at something like 3 a.m. So we went there with as I said, my cousin and 2 friends. We walk into the house, actually we just wanted to be in the garage, sort of outside, but the mom insists we enter. Just before we entered, my phone rings. As my phone rings, I could see it's the house phone in Canada. So I now know the kids definitely know. So the first person who comes on the phone is Alexis. She says, wow. Her sentence was very simple, "Tumeua mami." That was how she just put it. And she was saying she even feels like killing herself. I was telling her, Alexis, look, you're the first one there. You're the one I'm depending on. Please hold fort until I get there. The second person who came on the phone was Samara. Samara was just crying, and then I was telling her, Samara, it will be okay. She was telling me, no, Daddy, it will not be okay. The third person who came on the phone was JC. JC was just crying on the phone. She didn't say anything. Then out of the blues, Alexander, who was 6 years old then, comes on the phone, and you know what he says? "Hello, Daddy. Do you know in the morning they are going to kill Mommy?" That was his understanding of everything. And then in the background, I could hear the baby crying, Jojo. That time he was about 1 year and 5 months. So I finish with that. I get in. I have to face my mother-in-law. I become like the gentleman who had called me on the phone. I start recounting exactly the way he presented it to me, and I conclude. And then her first question, Ati Juma, because Juma is her middle name. That's how she's known. And then she asked, and the kids? I just said, the kids will be okay. Then she threw herself on the ground. Fortunately, I'd also gone with my sister and my friend's wife, so they tried their best to comfort her. And that was about an hour. After that, came back here, and I think I got back in the house. I say here because this house is exactly a replica of the house we were staying in then. And I had lost my brother 18 months before. That's why Jojo, our youngest son, is called Joseph. So I was telling myself that, wow, we lost Joseph, but this one is big. I've lost my wife, I've lost the mother of my kids. So by about 7 in the morning, the house was full. People have come in to support me. I already got a ticket early in the morning so that by evening, I caught the last flight out. I remember getting a call even from the minister at the time, Chris Obure, giving me his condolences. I caught the flight from here. It was a flight from Nairobi to London, and then London to Toronto. I landed in Toronto. In London, I had a 6-hour layover. I remember the first 3 hours I was just on the phone, talking to everybody, I don't know, in detail. But after that, I sat down and I said, Stephen, at the end of the day, you're going to have to say a speech at the funeral. Started wiring my mind. So I started the sentence, and I just broke down at the airport. And as I was crying, I was laughing at myself, and I was saying, wow, Stephen, this one is a big one. One of the things I had told my friend, the same doctor, Kamunyo, before I left is, you remember I had been up the whole night and the whole day, and now I'm catching a night flight. I was telling him I haven't slept, so he gave me some sleeping pills, should I need them. So when I had got on the flight to London, I thought I had slept for a long time. And when I asked, because it's an 8-hour flight to London, when I asked her, how much time do you have? I was told we still have 7.5 hours. That means I had not slept. So when I took the pills is when I next opened my eyes, it was 20 minutes to landing. I got on the plane, I think I've slept, nothing, sleeping pills, and then I land. So I arrive at the airport. I'm received by, I would say, the half professional colleagues, the ones she was doing the internship with. I think they identified me through the internet. They take me to the house, and I meet the kids, and the kids are so happy to see me, and they were so worried about me. Daddy, are you okay? Have you cried? I was telling them, yeah, all will be well. So we have arrived. She's died on a 22nd, which was a Monday. I arrived there on a Wednesday. But because of the circumstances of the death, just, what do you call it, an instant death within the hospital, it's a police case, essentially. The other challenge was when the personnel had called me to tell me about it, they told me, you have 5 kids. You're not here. Your wife has passed. Under Canadian law, the kids have become state children. We cannot guarantee we'll be able to have a place where all 5 of them can be within one home, so we might have to separate them. So unfortunately, we have to tell you that. I had a sister's friend who was in Toronto. So she had dashed to the place and she said there's no way she's having the kids separated. She'll stay put there until I arrive. Now the other thing is, because I was away and the kids have become state kids by Canadian law, even when I arrived, I had now to be interrogated to be sure that I am the father. And they also wanted to know the circumstances, maybe why was I not there. So I theoretically had to reclaim the kids. The other thing is, I thought I could go straight to the morgue and view her mortal remains. Nope. The coroner is working on her. The earliest you can see her is Sunday. And I've arrived there on Wednesday. So we go and see her on Wednesday, and on Sunday. Alexis said, the eldest, she's not going. Samora fell sick that day of going, and so she's admitted. So we went with JC, Alexander, and the baby. When I saw her the first time, I was cold. It was like a movie. When you watch autopsies, I didn't see anything. JC just said, this is not mommy. Jojo, who was a year and a half that time, he walked to her and was even pulling her braids because she had braids. Alexander, the 6-year-old, didn't talk. But when we got back to the house in the evening, he said, Daddy, do you know something? I wanted to spend the night there with mommy, but I knew you people would not agree. That's Alexander for you. So we now arrange, having seen her on Sunday, there was a church service on the Wednesday. Now, we had chosen these caskets which open halfway, because also part of the thing is, if you're transporting somebody by air when they've died abroad, it must be airtight. There's certain health standards that must be met. Anyway, I can remember when I walked into the chapel, because the chapel was actually next to the morgue. She had been prepared in such a way, she looked like she was awake. I was looking at her and I was actually observing her chest, and I was actually almost seeing like it is actually moving. That's what you want. And I think that's what was most painful. And that time I really, really broke down really, really badly, because the element of seeing somebody is actually there, but they're not there. I think that's when death really hits. If somebody looks dead, it's different. But if somebody looks alive and you're being told they're not there, I think that's really one of the difficult things to do. I gathered myself after that, went through the service, and then we made the arrangements for now coming back. I made it very clear in my mind we are all coming back. We landed back on a Monday. She arrived on a Tuesday. If you've ever had to receive somebody who's passed abroad, they arrive as cargo. You go to the cargo section. It's like you're picking cargo, and even the cargo is labeled human remains. We received her, took her to Umash for the night. Then the following day, I would say in our Samia tradition, we brought her to the house. She spent the night, as we did the night village and then vigil. Then the next day we took her to St. Paul's, and then we made a decision to bury her at Langata. I would say that was, everything that happened in relation to her passing. But it's again the beginning of a different life, because after you've laid her to rest, you realize you have 5 kids and you're alone. Where do we go from there? When it had just happened, and this is one thing that is fundamental, in Canada, it is standard. When something like that happens, counseling is mandatory almost. So we did go through that. But I also, for my own sake, just to be sure that I was sane and I was not running amok, I had a conversation with my good friend, Dr. J.J. Masiga. If you've heard of him, he's a dentist, but he's, I would say, like my big brother. And he recommended do you call him a psychiatrist? For me to see. I wanted just to see, to know, am I okay or not? So I went and saw him. He asked me quite a number of questions, and his deduction is that I'm okay. Key things: are you sleeping? Are you eating? How do you get stressed? Do you have ulcers? All that kind, yeah. I sort it out just to be sure that I am okay. I'll start with Alexis. She's my firstborn daughter, and because I took that decision, I would use the word gamble for her to complete her high school education in Canada. More so because I was looking at it as a way of fulfilling the dream that my late wife must have had. And that's what I've always been telling her. So she completed her high school there, and currently she's at Carleton University. Yeah, she's supposed to graduate by next year. For Alexis, one of the challenges, I never thought about it earlier, but it only came to light later, is, you see, when I lost my wife, but I still have the 5 kids, but technically the 4, because she remained abroad. For Alexis, she lost her mother, but she also says she lost her family, because by virtue of living abroad, she's lost her mother and she's separated from the rest of her family. So that's one of the, I would say, the difficult things I've had to deal with, and it's not been very easy for her on that particular front. She's come, I would say, from 2009, she used to come every year, but she's been last year, I think now it's 2013. Though I'd made arrangements, at least we went there last year with JC to see her. The previous year, Samora went to see her. And I think at least when she completes her education at Carleton University, then she's free to come or develop the life that she wants there. But she feels the homesickness. Now, as a man, I can only father the child insofar as I can as a man. There's so many other aspects in bringing up a girl that I would say I'm short on. I know the issue of monthly periods, hormones and all those, I would say that I don't have a hold of. I mean, even in the relationship between a man and a woman, even we men struggle sometimes just in our direct relationship with our partners, so it becomes a bit of a difficult scenario. But I've always tried to be their friends. Let them be as open as possible. Let them know that I'm not just their father, but I'm their friend. They should be able to confide in me and share their challenges. I also try to explain to them that life is always about resolution of problems. That's what life is about. And the moment you finish with resolving all the problems in the world, I think your time on this earth is over. I like explaining to them that, do you know why you're not God? Do you know why you can't? You know the way they say God doesn't give you everything. Because if he gave you everything, then you become God. That's one of the things I normally explain to them. Other challenges I've had is, of the 5 kids I have, 2 of them have a challenge of sickle cell anemia. And that was one of my greatest fears, because at least when Joyce was there, she had a way of managing it. And the first time it happened, as I mentioned to you, when we were going to view Joyce's remains at the hospital, Samara felt sick and had to get admitted. And it was the first time where I would say I became a normal person, in the sense I'm now not relying on a fellow medic partner giving me direction. I'm a normal human being. When somebody as well, they go to hospital. Even in 2010, when we came and settled back, I mean the kids and everything, there's a time Samora and Alexander were both sick at the same time and admitted at the hospital at the same time. That was really difficult for me, but I got a lot of support from my mom at the particular time. And then what was even more dramatic was, after they were discharged, 2 weeks later, Jojo, the baby, gets admitted. And I was saying, when it rains, it can pour. So I've always had that fear, but there's this doctor, Nyambura, who is a specialist in hematology. And through her, she used to be assisted by a Dr. Gadhuki, who is my good friend. So I would say Gadhuki is the one who's been managing my kids since then, at least the elements of the medical. I think one of the hardest times for me was in 2013 when Samora was in doing her fourth form exams in the month of just before her mocks, and she really got sick at Moi Nairobi Girls. I had to go and pick her about 1 a.m. She was in pain, screaming, took her to a hospital. She ended up having a blood transfusion. But since then, I would say she's been okay, manages her pains when they come. Sickle cell anemia is really a condition you have to manage. There's really no cure on that. I would say Alexander, who is the fourth one, is the other one who has sickle cell anemia, and for him, the challenge he faces is because he's not able to grow physically as big. If you look at the size, his physical size, he's in Form 2 right now, but you'd probably think he's in Standard 7 or 8. But I like encouraging him. I'm telling him that don't worry too much about your size. You have a big brain. You're a good chess player. You're doing well in school. There are certain blessings you have. Samora opted, she's in medical school. She opted to do medicine. She's about to start her fourth year. It came from her. Whether she's trying to fulfill the footsteps of her mother, I leave it to her, but she's pretty happy doing that. Samora doesn't talk a lot, but she's quite responsible. You can't rush her, and she's very decisive when she has made a decision. Like when she said she's doing medicine, she was very clear. She's doing medicine, and she's doing it at the University of Nairobi, and that was it. Come to my third-born daughter, JC. JC, we've had an interesting relationship with her. It's sorry to say, her mom never used to think that she was the sharpest academically, and in fact, she used to wonder, how is she getting stuff right? And I don't really think she measures up to it. Anyway, JC went to Consolata. I insisted part of the process that I want to spend time with my children. So for JC, the first prescription I gave for JC for Form 1 was day school at Consolata. We ran well from 1 up to about halfway from 2, and then I saw, I think there are issues here. I don't think she's performing to her optimum. I don't have a problem with a child who is not making grades but is making the effort. But I have a problem with somebody who has the potential, but you can see they are not meeting it because of, adolescence challenges or being responsible. So there's a day I came and I told JC, do you know what? And I even have to share this, maybe JC has never known. Samora, her elder sister, who is the one who I thought should not go to boarding. Samora insisted Form 1, she's going to boarding at Moi Nairobi Girls. And she's also the one who insisted that she thinks initially day school is good for JC. But when we were about that time, Samora changed and said, she thinks JC is going offline. So we had a consultative meeting, and my plan was actually to see how to get JC into Moi Nairobi Girls. But at the time, I was doing some work at Kenya High School, and the principal there we had a good relationship. I was just having a tete-a-tete with her, asking about the options. She just asked me one question. Have you had a discussion with her about boarding? Because there are times I've had children brought here I would call it in the name of being reformed, and I end up having to call the parents to tell them, take your child away. I came and had a discussion with JC. It took 3 days, I remember. First day, sounded out, and I told her, I don't think you're going back to Consolata. Of course, resistance. Second day, I don't think you're going back to Consolata. More resistance. The more she resisted, the more I was convinced I need to get her out of there, because it was almost like she was on a drug. That's what I just felt. The way she was ready to defend, I said, So the third day is when I told her the decision has been made, you are going. And she screamed, I remember, in my room, and she told me all manner of things. I don't know that some of them can be put on video, but I remember her telling me, Daddy, you're my only parent. You're supposed to be my only friend. And yeah, I told her, yes, because of that, that is why I'm doing. So pulled out of Kenya High, and that's where out of Consolata, took her to Kenya High. And of course, I remember very well, within a year, she's a good swimmer. You'll probably see a few medals within the house. She was a good swimmer, so when she went to Kenya High, she got into the swimming team, and boom, all of a sudden there was a trip to the US. So when that trip came and she was putting in her application, I was asking her, do you think it was a good idea to go to Kenya High, or? And she would stare at me. I would say it was a very positive thing. She finished at Kenya High, and that's how she now actually came and was very clear where she wants to go to university. She came and told me she wants to go to Strathmore, and she wants to go and study international relations. And she was very clear on it. And that's where she is right now. She's about to start her third year. Alexander, a very interesting boy also. I was protective of him. I thought maybe the boarding environment would not be right for him. I went to boarding school, and I know what boys do in terms of bullying. And it doesn't have to be physical. But Alexander was very clear. I'm going to boarding school. He even identified the school. It's a new school. We're going to be the second lot, Nova Academies. All right. He went for all the interviews there. He went to Strathmore interview. He went to St. Mary's. He made his decision, Nova. So that's where he is from too. Of course, when he entered after a term, he started remembering maybe what Daddy said was right. This boarding is a bit difficult. But right now, I just keep encouraging him, telling him, you have made a decision. My work is to support it, okay? All those challenges you're facing in boarding are challenges that you'll face in life. I can move you from this school, you'll still go and meet new people who can be probably worse than the ones you're dealing with. Learn how to manage the scenario you're in and make the best of it. And I keep encouraging him. Right now he's in his fifth term. He's in Form 2, second term. But for me to be able to package it for him to see that the end is not far, I tell him, now you're in your 5th term. After that, there are only 7 more terms. I'm sure from some of the comments you've heard me quote him. He's an interesting fellow. Even the time when his mom passed, I remember him asking me, as a 6-year-old, Daddy, why do we have to go back to Kenya? I told him, I have to go back to work. And then, why can't you work here? So that was him as a 6-year-old. Other experiences I had from him, even within the year of his passing of his mom, there's a day he came and told me, Daddy, please don't die. And then I said, yes, because if you die, I'm just 6 years old. I can't do shopping. I can't drive. I can't fuel. But if you have to die, we die together. That's Alexander. Very interesting boy. Now, the person who I would say at some stage in his life was almost at risk of getting spoiled was Jojo. Because remember, he lost his mom when he was 1.5 years. So everybody's just Jojo. Even that's where, I don't even know the name. The name, I think he got it from the, what do you call these places where kids are taken, daycare centers in Canada, and the name stuck. Jojo loves football, loves sports, loves his brother. He's currently in St. Mary's. He's quite a talented footballer. I want to watch and see how that goes. But he's also picked up golf, and he's in the opera. One of the things I see in my 2 sons is anytime any female comes to the house, be it an auntie, a sister, a friend, anybody, I see that gap that they're missing of a mother.